Lucky for you.
Ciao.
Ciao. All right. So we're live. So it has been a long time since you and I have had a chance to do this, to talk. Months.
Yes.
Months and months.
Yes.
It's good to see you again.
Also, yeah, thank you. I'm happy as well. Do you remember the last time we were together in Milan playing Waterloo and I defeated you several times?
No, you did not. And look, I knew you'd bring that up. I have a picture. Here it is. The victory. All mine.
Oh.
You were drunk, or I was drunk, or we were both drunk.
Well, let's talk about the new game then.
Okay, let's move straight on, right? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. All right. That's why I am always prepared for you. I know you. So I wanted to get together because you have done in the last 12, 18 months some great new games.
Thank you.
And you now have a new game, which is probably the biggest game for Vento Nuovo, I think. Yes?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. In terms of number of pieces in the map and scope, the rule book is 19 pages, which is a lot of pages for you, right? You're 10, 12. So this is a kind of a big step. And I have been helping a little bit just in the background, but lots of other people have been doing important things to help you. Tell us a little bit about Black Swan and the idea and where it came from. And just so everybody knows, June 22nd, right, is the KickStarter date, right? Okay, so tell us a little bit about it and help me get informed, and then I'll ask you some hard questions.
Okay. The idea was to have a block game covering World War II in Europe from the beginning till the end. And we wanted to realize a game with the fog of war concept, so we could keep all the basic concept of the fog of war. But we also wanted to make a game in which players could play World War II in a reasonable amount of time, first, without being overwhelmed by tons of rules, second, and third, with a great replay value. So that was the main scope of the project. It took a while because when you try to get all these things into such a large game, it is always difficult. But in the end, we got it.
Yeah, I saw that there was a partial playtest posted online, and that looked very interesting. So folks can go check that out. Yes.
Yeah. That was a very old prototype with a primitive design over the map, because the most important thing for me was the bone of the game, to have the bone of the game working. Then after we started working on the graphics, and we are still working on on other small details. But that's part of the game. But first thing, I wanted an engine able to sustain World War II in Europe, both in the air, on the ground, and at sea, in the easiest way. But giving each type of unit a scope in the game. Because we are used to give probably air units and CV at sea too much importance as they had historically. So the idea was to offer players the chance to manage their production, to manage their strategic movements, to manage their tactical choice, and to manage also the time when to declare war to other nations,
right?
But in the easiest possible way.
And so the map now, when do you feel from based on your play tests it's a interestingly laid out map. The areas look quite open and large. What I found with a lot of World War II area movement games, particularly with blocks, sometimes even with counters, everything's so crowded and so difficult to get access to. This looks like it's quite comfortable. I think the image on the screen is showing probably the Uber map, yeah?
Yes, that's probably the standard map, because the standard map is, if I remember well, it is a meter on a side and a meter 30 centimeters on the other side.
Is it really? Okay, so that's quite big.
The UberText map is even larger.
Now tell folks about that, because I've always, that's a little bit small for us to see. Let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. Tell folks about the UberText map. Yeah.
Well,
what's the material again? It's like a Gore-Tex, is it, or have you changed it? Because you've used two different materials in the past.
Yes, this is a brand new material, and it is called, technically it is polypropylene, and it is fireproof, waterproof, alcohol-proof, and it is able to lay flat on the table. And theoretically, I mean, of course, you can wash it, okay? But theoretically, you can also iron it. And if you want, I can show you the prototype I have here in the office.
Yeah, why don't you hold it up, and I'll pull down the screen that we're looking at here, because the zooming in here is not working particularly well. But here's a better image of the map here. Show us the map. Do you have it?
Sure. Mind that this is still an old prototype, so it is a prototype from March. So many things have changed up to now.
Okay, go. Just
I'll take it.
Go get it. Great. Now I'm going to have to teach him how to. Oh, nice.
Okay. Let me see if I can show.
Whoops. Okay. Let me. Can we see you there? Yeah, that's nice. I'm trying to make it just you. Unfortunately, I can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very large map because the longest side is over 1.5 meters.
Can I make a jacket with that?
Sure, and it is double side. You can jack it like this, or you can also make a sort of camouflage on the other side.
That's funny. All right.
And this is the back.
Yeah.
And this is the front. As you can see, I can do something like this, and then I can just do it down over the table. If needed, I can iron it a bit.
Well, and I think we've just found a new use for it. One of the people watching is saying that they want to use it as a carpet.
Yeah.
This is another idea.
I have one under my feet right now.
That's perfect. Okay. All right. Well, so that's a new thing, right? No one knew that we could do this with mats. So innovation in of itself. You're a crazy guy. All right. So trying to be just a tiny bit serious. You and I always goof around, so I'm okay with us doing this. With the system, you have never done a game. You've usually focused on battles. So, well, that's not true. So I suppose with East blocks in the East, blocks in the West, blocks in Africa, they were multi-year games. So tell me about this uses seasons, right?
Exactly.
And there's a production capability and strategic movement and things like that. Now, sometimes when I hear about production points, I get very nervous and I start thinking of Third Reich and all the mess and complication. How are you handling this?
Well, let's say that in the game there are two kind of areas which gives you production points.
Okay.
One kind of area, we have 19 like that, is called strategic area. For example, Berlin, London, Rome, Paris, and Moscow, of course, those are all strategic areas. They provide you with 5 production points. Also, above these 19 strategic areas, there are several other areas, I would say 25 if I'm right, each one granting you an extra 5 production points. How can you visualize that? You have a black triangle with a 5, a white 5 printed in.
On the map.
On the map, yes.
On the map.
But mind that there are also some areas, actually 4, if I'm correct, which gives you 10 production points. And we have London, the Ruhr, Baku, and Berlin. Those are the only ones granting 10 production points. So, I mean, it is just a multiple of 5 or 10 to add.
Okay.
So it is not that difficult.
And am I choosing my blocks to bring on, or is it random draw to keep replay positive?
What a player can do is, during production, he can decide to build a maximum number of new units, either naval units or aeroterrestrial units, up to his strategic power. The strategic power of a player is given by the total amount of strategic areas he controls. For example, the strategic power of Italy is 1 and remains 1 for the remainder of the game. So there is no way to increase Italian strategic power. Italy, that means, can build maximum 1 new unit. Italy can choose if the new unit is a naval unit or an aeroterrestrial unit, but this unit must be randomly drawn.
Okay.
Germany may have, usually during the game, has a strategic power of 8, meaning that Germany can build up to 8 new units per season. And considering that Germany has, if I remember well, 70 units in the game and starts with 20, it will take probably 2 or 3 years to complete the build-up of the whole army.
Right.
This is random, I do agree, but if Germany is not putting the army at an unuseful risk, after a couple of years, the whole German army will be deployed in the field, ready for Barbarossa. If instead you are taking unuseful risks with Germany, for example, then you will start losing your pieces, and the entropic engine on which the production system is built on will start giving you not the right counter you want. If instead you calculate the risks and you afford what you can without trying to overachieve your goals, then probably after 2 years, you will be okay with that.
Okay. And how about the buildup of the British and the Americans coming into the war? How does that figure into the game?
It works more or less the same way for units, while regarding, so the point is, which is the difference between the Axis and the Allies in the game? The Western Allies have a huge economic power.
Mm-hmm.
The Axis, instead, has the central position in Europe. So it is the best position to launch attack where they like. Also, they face very weak points, for example, the Polish or the Balkans or even the northern countries or
Right.
even France to grab easy new production points and strategic points. Which is the downside? If the Axis do not start attriting the Western Allies army, in the end, the overpower of the Western Allies will overwhelm the Axis.
Well, overwhelmed, right?
Yeah. So it is important for the Axis to keep a strong U-boat at sea in order to sink as much as light fleets and transport to the Allies. That
Right.
way they will face to rebuild them, and they will be facing the same issue we were talking before, because the rebuilding system is random. So unless they reach the level of having everything on the field, they will not be able to deploy, for example, airborne units in time for overload.
Right. Right. Now, how about? So I want to come back to the naval part of the game, but let's go back to 1939. So, the whole premise of the game with Black Swan, the name Black Swan, is built around chaos theory and how I'm trying to think about the right way to say this. How in 1939 a lot of different things could have happened. So, the beginning of the game. What are the diplomatic choices and the Axis versus Allies alignments? Like, who are we fixed in that, or is there some variability in that, in terms of what might happen?
We are right in the middle, Kevin, in the sense that some things have a strong historical basis. So in 39, the game starts with Germany at war with Poland.
Okay.
And as soon as Poland is attacked, France and UK must declare war to Germany. That's the starting point. Other than that, anything may happen. We just have to remember that there is a Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact between Germany and the Soviet Union.
Yep.
So if both countries are maintaining the proper border garrisons, a war cannot happen unless we are in 1941.
Okay. Okay.
So
go ahead.
there are some limitations. So for example, to be honest, you can't attack Switzerland. Switzerland is an absolute neutral.
I was going to ask you about that.
No, I mean, there are things actually you can't do.
Sure.
You can't, with the Axis, you can't invade North America. The Axis didn't have the transport, either the.
Sure.
So
this is not. What is that game? Catalyst or whatever it is from GMT. This is. Would you say? Have you played Catalyst or seen it? I don't know if you have or not.
I don't remember.
Doesn't matter. It's okay. It's a World War II game, area based. I was just curious. A lot of people like to go, well, what is Black Swan like? Is it like Catalyst, or is it like Triumph and Tragedy, or is it like World in Flames, or World at War? And obviously, it's not those last two, right? Because they're very 100-page rule book and Hex encounter in detail. But in terms of block game, you start in 1939 and you finish in 45. So it's really World War II, but other allies may or may not arrive depending on what happens. Yep. So what about Romania, Hungary, places like that, Yugoslavia? So
we have to distinguish between the base game, which has almost fixed rules for those minor countries you have just listed, the optional rules, which have some diplomatic variation to those countries. For example, we have the chance in the optional rules that Yugoslavia joins the Axis and remains in the Axis more than 5 days, as it did historically.
Okay.
And then we have a plan for making an expansion in the future in order to add extra chrome to the game. But talking of the base game, it's really a base game. So there are not that too many strange things you can do.
Okay. And okay, so that makes me happy. So if I want to sit down and start in 1939, play through to 1945, we can do that. And I understand there are a number of different scenarios and a number of different starting points. So to give people choices, you don't have to play the whole war if you don't want to. And we can talk about that in a little bit. So now let's come back to the naval side of things. Let's talk about U-boats and convoys. Are there any naval actions? How do you do a land? How do you do an invasion? How do I invade Sicily? Or Tunisia, for that matter?
Well, you have hit the critical point of the game. No, I mean, sometimes we approach World War II in Europe thinking it's as if it was just a ground campaign. And we have, instead, we think that the Pacific theater of World War II was mainly a naval campaign.
Right.
Instead, both these theaters have seen a land action and ground action, both supported by air actions. So we wanted to find the right mix in this game.
Yep.
Because, for example, for Italy, the idea of keeping control of Malta, Crete, Libya, Egypt, and Middle East is not possible if Italy does not have a strong navy in the Med. Also for the northern countries, so Norway, for example, or even to supply the Finns during Barbarossa, to support them, the Germans must have a strong navy in the Baltic. On the other side, the Germans really have the chance to crack the supply and transport lines of the Western Allies in the Atlantic Ocean, employing both the surface units and the U-boat, which is the main difference.
Yeah, surface and U-boats, right?
Yeah. Difference is that U-boats are cheaper. So they are much faster to build at a certain point during the game and very cheap. And they really create troubles to both the supply and transportation and logistics in the end side of the Allied.
Good. Okay, so that's interesting. Now, does the naval side of it help facilitate strategic movement? How is strategic movement handled in the game? There was a lot of to and fro from east front to west front, north to south. 1 minute 21st or 15th Panzers in Africa. Next thing you know, they're in the right. What happens? How does that work?
Strategic movement is abstract in the game. So the only limitation is that it is limited by the strategic power of each nation. Again, the strategic power of Italy is 1.
Right.
That means that in each season, Italy may strategically move 1 in supply unit across any controlled land areas and across any either controlled or contested sea zone that contains at least 1 friendly naval unit. But each time a unit strategically moved over a sea zone which contains also enemy naval units will be automatically attacked. So strategically movement really gives you the chance to quickly redeploy your best force, your best units, and prepare an offensive, or redeploy your elite units right behind the place where you believe your enemy is willing to attack you. But it is not unlimited. It is limited. And again, it is limited by the strategic power you have.
Right.
Some nations, like Italy, cannot pump it up. Instead, the Germans, the Western Allies, and the Soviets can really work with it. And mind that when you reach, if a side hits a strategic power of 11, the game is immediately won.
So when you and I played this in Milan at some point, I think the last time we played, we talked about that I won and everything. I will only need 11 strategic points to win. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm just checking. I'm just making sure. I need to know how many points I need to beat.
11. But remember that when you play against the game designer, rules may change a bit.
That wouldn't be the first time.
Yes,
great.
11 is the magic number. We have 19 strategic areas. If
Right.
a side controls 11, it is game over.
Yeah.
And again, strategic areas are, for example, Rome, Athens, Cairo, Moscow, Leningrad, Stalingrad, of course, London, Paris, Gibraltar, Narvik for the iron ore of the Germans. But
Yes.
I mean, for example, Malta is not that important as a strategic point area. But controlling Malta, it is important because it is an island, and the player controlling Malta automatically adds an opposition fire disk in the central med sea zone. And this disk do count as if it was a naval unit.
Right. So it's going to give you some interdiction capability and the ability to defend or hold it, as the case may be. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But what about I'm sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something?
That's the important thing of controlling islands. There is not any rule stating you have to conquer Crete, you have to conquer Sicily, you have to conquer Malta. You can ignore them. But the more island you control in the Med, the more you can control sea zone, because each island will provide. I make an example. Crete is adjacent to 3 sea zones.
Mm-hmm.
That means that the player controlling Crete may add 1 opposition fire disk for each of the 3 sea zones, each one counting as if it was a friendly naval unit. So that's a huge importance.
Yes. Well, particularly for the Italians, right? Since they have such a weak and small navy to start with, if they can capture
Exactly.
those, the Germans can capture them and give them access to that, all that sort of good stuff. Okay.
Yeah, the trick for the Italians is exactly what you said. They have a very limited resource in terms of men, materials and capability, but they can maintain the soft underbelly in the Axis hands if the Germans help them to first get control of the Med by seizing all the most important islands, and then expand over the Middle East, where there are three strategic areas: Iraq, Persia, and of course Alexandria, Cairo.
Right. Now, in the game, we talked a little bit about production and production points and things like that. What about the strategic war side of things? Tell us a little bit about that, because I know there's a strategic air war. How does that work? Give us a little bit of insight on that.
Well, that is a thing that made me sleep many nights, because I wanted a strategic warfare module compassing both the air war over the British, the air war over the Axis, and the naval warfare mainly carried on by U-boats against the Western allies. Okay. But I wanted all these two systems run by just one engine, one matrix. And in the end, and with zero time loss. So it is just a matter of what you have been doing before. How does it work? You have just to calculate the number of air or U-boat steps inside a specific strategic umbrella. And then compare this number to the number of the enemy steps in the same umbrella.
No, okay, simple.
Then you index, you have a result with three numbers: attacker loss, the last one is defender loss, and the middle one is production point lost. The critical point was to find the right algorithm to have three different situations working with one indexing.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's interesting. And it seems to simplify the exercise without, sometimes you go into these strategic warfare phases in some of the larger games and it's 5 pages of rules and it's complicated. I'm looking here at your rules and it's 1, 2, 3 paragraphs. So we're taking things fairly straightforward. One of the things I'd like you to do, I'm actually gonna step away from the screen for a minute because there's a plumber here who needs to fix something, and I need to go sort of tell him what to do. But if you could tell the gang that's watching about the board combat, the combat on the board, how it works, because you're a pip-based combat system, right? But then also Blitzkrieg and how Blitz is handled. I've read the rules and understand how it works, so I'd love to hear you talk about that. I'll leave the picture up on the screen, and I'll be back in 3 minutes. And I'm sorry.
Okay. And so I will take the chance to do a thing here as well. So I'll be back in 1 minute.
Oh, so you're gonna be back in 1 minute, and I'll be back in 3. So everyone hang tight.
Okay. Ciao.
Ciao. That's hilarious. Can't hear you. Glad I came back.
That's fantastic. So I was talking for nothing.
I guess. So rewind yourself and start again.
Okay.
Let's see. Looks like, well, it's only 1 minute that we lost the audio, so you're doing okay.
Yeah, okay. And combat, sequence of combat and land combat. In land combat, there is no participation of naval units except if there is an amphibious invasion. Except for that, it is just a matter of for the attacker to send a maximum of 4 units, so ground or air units or a combination, to attack an area which contains a number of units of the defender, which may vary from 1 to 4, which is the limit of the attacker. The attacker must attack with at least 2 different types of units. So, as we have 4 different kinds of units for this kind of move, because we have infantry, tank, artillery, and air units, that means that I can't attack with just 2 infantry. I need, for example, an infantry and an air unit. Also, you can send more units of the same type to a single combat, but no more than 2. What does it mean? I can send 2 infantry and 2 air units, but I can't send 3 infantry and 1 air unit because the maximum limit per type is 2. These 2 are the only limitations. You must attack with 2 at least different types and no more than 2 units per type. Usually, however, players tend to attack with a mixed formation of an air unit because it is the first to fire, an artillery unit because it is the second to fire, a tank, the third to fire, and the infantry, which is the last to fire. On the other way round, an air unit is expensive. It is 4 production points for each step. Artillery 3, tank 2, and infantry 1. So, even if an air unit fire first, if a hit is expensive.
So do you use AA to do that, or is AA built into every unit and you'll get to roll prior to the air attacking? Is that how that works? Just like it does in your other games?
Yeah. First of all, there is the air units rolling. Let's say that I have air units and you have air units. We both roll simultaneously and hits are applied to air units we have.
Okay.
Then we go to artillery units, but this time I have artillery and you don't. So I will roll for my artillery while you roll for nothing. And then tanks. Maybe I don't have tanks while you have. So you roll for tank during the tank segment of rolling dice, and then the last infantry. Each unit, no matter the type, hits at 5 and 6, and rolls as many dice as steps it has.
Yep. Do you distinguish? Okay, go ahead.
If unopposed, the class receives the unopposed bonus. So, for example, in the previous example, if I have artillery, not only I am the only one rolling for artillery during the artillery fire step, but I also hit at 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, interesting. So same with tanks then? So if I have tanks and you don't, I hit on a 4, 5, 6?
And same for infantry.
Okay. But infantry versus, there's always going to be infantry, right? I mean, well,
it is.
would infantry attacking tanks get hit on a 4, 5, or 6 if there was no?
Yeah, the point is that infantry is the last to fire. So if they can survive,
Right. If it can survive, right. Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. Now,
And retreat is also very important.
Retreat?
Because combat lasts for just one round.
Okay. So it's not multi-round like in Blocks in the East.
No, it is one round. After, the side which more unit types surviving takes the area.
Okay.
That's why it is important to attack with as many types you can. Okay. Because no matter how many hits you inflict to the enemy, what does count is to get the area. When you get the area, you need at least, I would say 4 different types, because usually you try to send many units in. But there are some things you cannot control.
Sure. Now, tell me, I noticed with the stickers that there are multiple colors. Now, typically, how does that work in this particular system? Because I know you've used multiple colors in many different ways. So,
air units are blue. They cost 4 production points per step, and they are the first to fire. Artillery, they are white. Sorry, they are red. They are second to fire, and they cost 3. Tank are white. They are the third to fire, and they cost 2.
Okay.
Infantry, they are the last to fire, and they cost 1. So if you make a sum, it is always 5. Okay. The same works for naval units. So the first to fire is carriers, which is blue and cost 4. Then after, red units, which are heavy surface, followed by light surface, and last, submarines. Submarines are the infantry of the sea.
Right. Okay, so no quality distinctions based on color. It's more by type.
Yes.
Good.
We have some elite units in the game.
Okay, and so tell us a little bit about elite units, and then tell us about Blitz. How are you making Blitz happen in the game?
Okay, what do you want to know first? Elite or Blitz?
It's your show. You tell me.
Elite, because it is very easy. Okay. SS are elite. Yeah. The Italians do not have elite. The Soviets have some elite. All the airborne are elite. Total in the game, there are, if I'm correct, 12 elite units. The Germans have 4, and the Allies have 8. Elite units do cost the same as standard units, but the number of elite steps you can build per season is limited. Guess by what?
Production points. No, strategic points.
Exactly.
Right.
So the more strategic area you control,
more elite you can build. Right. Okay, that's nice. All right. See, and this is, often we get caught up in, I play a lot of complicated games and I like simpler games as well, but often we get caught up in the complexity. Things need to be complex, but sometimes you can bring simple ideas that create or recreate a specific effect or a type of part of history, right? So obviously creating elite units is difficult and they need experience and all the rest of it. So your way of manifesting that is quite clever. So,
and you also need to manifest that your nation deserve elite units.
Right.
How? Because you control strategic areas. So you are an affordable nation, yes. And people will be happy to enlist in your army.
Yeah. And so now talk about Blitz a little bit, because I know that that has some twists to it. Yeah.
Blitz is an expensive thing. let's say that there are three fronts in the game: the east front, the west front, and the med front. And during a season, a side can always play the production phase, the naval phase, and the land phase. But to play the blitz phase, that side must purchase a blitz disc, which costs 20 production points, which is equal to 20 infantry steps. Just to give you an idea, the Italian production at the beginning of the game is 10. So, and German production at the beginning of the game is 30. So 20 is a really huge amount of production points to get invested in a single blitz disc, but it allows you to play the land phase twice. So not only you can move your land and air units twice, you can attack twice and exploit the gap, but you can also strategically move twice, as if your strategic power was temporarily doubled, because you are, yeah.
So the 1940 time frame makes sense to do it, and then 41. So you've got to accumulate your production points and decide whether now I have to make a choice between building units and accumulating enough points for a blitz disc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or choosing to spend that one disc I might have. Can you have more than one disc at a time?
Up to 3.
Up to 3. Okay. So I can build them up, and I may not go to war too early. I might change when I go to war, except for whatever's written into the rules, right? And
yes.
Then spend them. Can you spend more than one in a turn, or is it one only a turn?
Yes. You can either spend all 3 in the same season, but spending 3 is easy. You have to buy them first.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And they are 60 points.
Right.
So
now, how does France fall? How do they surrender? How does Russia surrender? How does the surrendering work?
Okay, let's say that the US never surrender. Okay,
that makes sense. Can't invade them, they can't surrender, right?
Yeah. Other nations automatically surrender if the national capital is enemy controlled. So, if the Germans control Warsaw in 1939, the Polish are gone. If the Allies control Berlin, the Germans are gone. Additionally, French and Italy may offer an armistice before the national capital is enemy controlled, in order to obtain better surrender conditions.
Okay.
Also, the Soviet Union does not automatically surrender if Moscow has fallen. The Axis need to control all the access to Siberia, to all the rail gauges to Siberia, to force the Soviets to surrender.
Okay, so it's a supply-oriented surrender as well as physical location capture, right?
Yeah, the Soviets would not have surrendered if Moscow had fallen. So the war in the East is something brutal. The Axis players must be prepared for.
Right. Now, what about England? What about? I'm sorry. Actually, before we get to that, Paul has a question. Can you lose a blitz disc?
Well, theoretically, no, this is not possible, because you purchase a blitz disc at the beginning of the season,
right?
And you have to use it during the season in the front corresponding to the color of the blitz disc you have purchased.
So is it a use it or lose it, or do you get to keep it for a period of time?
No, use it or lose it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you can't build a bank of blitz discs.
No.
Interesting. So you can lose them. Okay, interesting. Good question, Paul. So let me see. I had a question. So sea lion. How do we get rid of the pesky British? We never liked them anyway. So
No, I mean, first of all,
how do we make them surrender?
yeah. Well, the first thing is the British ground units in the game are limited. So the more they send to France to help the Froggies, the less they will have to defend Britain in one or two seasons later. So for the British, it is a matter of gambling. Send as more units as you can to defend France, but keep them along the coast. And as soon as the Germans approaches Paris, bring back them. If you don't, or even worse, if you have sent them to nowhere, for example, to Gibraltar or to Malta or to Mumbai or to Cairo, that will be an issue because the German Kriegsmarine will probably get out from the Baltic Sea and put a stress along the channel. And if air superiority is gained over the channel, there is a high chance that UK will be invaded and that London will fall. London fallen, I mean, there is nothing more to do.
It's over. The Americans can't. So how would that? So from now I forget how many points you said that was worth. Strategic points. We need to get 11.
19 totally.
Right, 19 total, and we need 11. And how much is London worth to us? Just the one. So it's conceivable. For some way, shape, or form to continue the war if the UK fell, Britain falls, or is it pointless?
Well, theoretically, losing London means that the supply source of the British is lost. So all the British units will surrender in the game.
In the next turn or that turn?
At the end of the turn.
At the end of the turn, okay.
Except fortifications, forts. So I don't know how long they can last.
So then it would be up to the Americans to enter the war or for Russia to do extremely well.
That's probably too late.
Interesting. In your playtesting, has anyone ever taken England? Has it fallen?
Well, there are things you have to do to prevent that. First, you have to fortify the coast.
Yeah.
Then you have to build the naval units to protect your coast. Third, you have to build your air units to protect your skies. Once all these things are ready, you can start building your ground army and think to employ the ground army elsewhere. If you do it the other way around, you will find yourself a sitting duck, unable to reopen your supply routes with the colonies and the mandates, and your production power, your economic power will fall down. You will not be able to replenish your losses. And in the end, you will open the gate for sea lion. I mean, UK is an empire with colonies and raw materials coming overseas. If you lose them, UK cannot afford a war of attrition against Germany in 1940. So it is a kind of getting, not losing anything while not getting anything. So remain stable. You don't have to take risks.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
So yes, it may happen, and it happened. For example, when the Western Allies were trying to mount an offensive in 1940 against Germany, and they failed, the counter move was the Kriegsmarine supporting an amphibious invasion against UK. This may happen, but I mean, it is part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch at, when your opponent is playing, it is like poker. You have, even if you cannot see his cards, you can understand his feelings, his emotions by sensations, and try to understand what he is doing. I mean, at least try. If you are WhatsApping while he is playing his turn, you will be surprised.
Well, if I'm using WhatsApp, yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, if while you are making your turn, I'm not watching at you.
Yes.
And I'm distracted by other things, then I will be surprised because.
So we need to have your beautiful Russian girlfriend sitting next to you while you and I play.
No, my friend, you are too strong. You don't need them.
Is that right? I don't know. I'd like her to be there. But anyway, so let's see. I see there's a question here. Here's a question. Pacific Theater.
Sorry?
The Pacific Theater. Is there a thought of expanding this beyond Europe into the Pacific Theater?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. There we go. Interesting.
Because this module has been created to be used in both the games, because we didn't want to have different set of rules.
Right. Okay. And
of course, in the Pacific, we have a lot of islands.
There is that. Yeah. Okay. So very
and few tanks.
And very few tanks. Yeah. So lots of carriers, though, right? Okay. Interesting. Now, so what else? So you're with the Kickstarter, and we'll probably wrap this up in the next 5 or so minutes, but or maybe 10, whatever. But with the Kickstarter, what are you hoping to achieve with it for expansion? I think there were, where is the page now? There were several expansion or extras in here that I thought were pretty cool.
Stretch goals.
Stretch goals, that's what I'm trying to say. You knew what I was trying to say. So talk to me about stretch goals.
Well, in the game right now, we have a lot of wood, a lot of stickers, large maps.
Yes.
And detailed scenarios and rules and player aids. The thing we want to do is to make all these things more durable. So we want to laminate the box. We want to laminate the player aid. We want to print the rules manual in a better quality and even in a double copy per game, so you can spare one to your best friend before he comes home to play with you.
Mm-hmm.
We want to laminate the map. We want also to increase the replay value by increasing the number of scenarios and campaign. So we plan to make a 42 scenario, a 42 campaign, and also a 43 scenario and a 43 campaign. Next, we want to add some graphics to the Blitz discs. So each Blitz disc has its own generals on. So, for example, the Germans for the Africa Blitz, the Mediterranean Blitz disc, they have Rommel on it.
Right.
And while the Western Allies for the Mediterranean Blitz disc has Montgomery. And so we want an artist. We have already selected the artist, but we want an artist drawing the 6 generals. You know, artists are expensive. They don't do things for nothing.
True.
And now I don't remember the other things that were listed.
So here's another question for you. Would you consider either in the future or as part of the stretch goals, gameplay prior to 1939? So the sort of the lead up to the war, how would that work? Is that being considered?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
What are there any considerations, any thinking about the war prior to 1939? So political changes that may occur to have a different outcome.
Yeah, those things are for the Chrome expansion.
For the Chrome expansion, okay.
Yes.
Cards, right? You'll have a
new
hand
counters, new units, new rules, and so on.
Okay.
And change the diplomacy of the game. That's the main focus of the Chrome expansion.
Okay. Good.
I mean, I understand that players always want to get more details, more Chrome, more units, but after a while, you will find that all those things cannot fit into a regular box. So you have to increase the size of the box. Right. You will increase the storage place of your game box. You will increase the weight and the cost you pay for shipping the game on the other side of the world.
Yes.
In the end, the number of pages or of rules and the complexity of the game will increase. The number of hours of playtesting will increase as well. And, you know, playtesters always debate for having their own specific add-ons into the game.
Sure.
And that's the reason why we wanted to cut the game as easy as possible with a high replay value and a lot of variability, but without too many exceptions and Chrome.
Right.
That is not the scope.
Yeah, I think that's smart. If you want to get build up a fan base, right? Have 1,000 people playing the game and enjoying it, and then you can offer them more and more Chrome, and that may generate additional sales for you to go beyond 1,000 or whatever you end up doing. So that's good. One question I had: many of your games you have both a paper map and a mounted map. Will this be just the card stock map?
No, yeah. This time we will have the 400 grams heavy cardboard map into the game, and then we hope we can laminate it. And then we will have the UberText map as an add-on, but not the mounted map. Why? Because the thickness of the thing would be something like this.
Right. Too big. Changes the box. Right.
I mean,
I assume that was the case.
It changes everything. This is something we can have in the future, but I'm afraid that it will be very expensive because we are talking of something which is over a square meter in size.
Yes.
Very expensive and heavy to ship. So, I mean, it is like, in this case, it is probably too much in weight and in increasing the size of the shipping box.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm trying to be respectful of your time here. So we're just over an hour. Was there anything else you wanted to share with people before June 22nd when the Kickstarter begins? If not, that's okay. Oh yeah, there it is. There's your, and the artwork has turned out great on the cover. By the way, it looks much better than some of the early iterations. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, many artists have been working on this.
Yeah, it's very cool. Well, listen, I hope it goes extremely well, right?
Thank you, Kevin.
Well, and here's a good thing that everyone should know about you and your company is that you're one of the very few war game companies that actually delivers early or on time. So you have some confidence there that you are well organized and well structured for a war game company doing Kickstarters. So
we will do our best because we like what we do.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, my friend, hang around for a minute. I'm just going to end the broadcast, but great talking to you again, and we'll good luck with the Kickstarter.
Thank you, Kevin. Hello to all the friends who have joined us during this chat.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Ciao.
Ciao.